Let's chug right through. Why don't we? So, starting off with weekly news. I'm going to get rid of this weekly review tab. So let's just go ahead and start off with the recent releases. Tyler Lockett, huge release for the Seahawks. It makes sense. He's an aging wide receiver. I mean, he's done a lot for the team, won a lot of games with this team, and huge changes coming in this Seattle team. We'll be talking about one of them shortly, but Tyler Lockett, I would expect him to land somewhere. I don't imagine that his career's over quite yet. It's going to be very interesting to see where he goes. I was wondering if there was anything or any team per se that you guys think could potentially pick him up. Cough, cough, Chiefs, maybe. Cough, cough.
No, I really think it's either going to come down to the Raiders or just retirement. And you're like, Raiders, that's a weird team. And it'll go for the other Seahawks guy we'll talk about in a minute. But it just goes back to that connection with Pete Carroll there. They have a need for wide receivers. But yeah, I think it's either that or he retires. I wouldn't be completely shocked if he just, hangs up the cleats after this.
David Nipp coming in saying Tampa. That'd be interesting. I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't. Assuming that they keep Chris Godwin at wide receiver 2, which I believe that they said that they would, or they're at least going to try. He'd be a good wide receiver 3 on that team to make a little bit more of a deeper push with Baker Mayfield. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, just a little note. It frees up $17 million in cash and cap in 2025, but they take on almost $14 million in dead money making this release. So big, chunk of dead money. They just wanted to get off the Lockett contract. Them releasing him and him not retiring makes me believe that he's not going to retire. It makes me believe that would have been known by now. So Pete Carroll makes a ton of sense with Las Vegas. Wherever Russell Wilson plays, I think makes sense. And any contender makes sense. So anywhere, I'll say, except those really diminished teams like my team. So
I'm sorry, buddy. That was really sad. That was a bad ending there. That was not a good vibe.
But that category of team.
Yeah, he said, like my team. Anyways, Davante Adams was also released. They were exploring trade options for the receiver before ultimately releasing him. No bueno for this guy. I am expecting at least a conversation to be had about a return in Green Bay. I think that would be a lot of fun. However, there's been a lot of buzz recently about West Coast teams and him trying to make a little bit more of a splash there. What do you guys think on this one?
Yeah, I think the obvious answer there is Green Bay. I would keep an eye out for a team like the Dallas Cowboys. They need another weapon there. Again, he's moving out west where it's a little bit warmer. And for the Jets, man, that just didn't work out at all for him. I mean, it was funny. Someone was like, oh, it was just a 12-week dopamine hit is what that was. Third round for a dopamine hit. It's wonderful. But yeah, I think probably the Packers or again, one of those West Coast teams.
Yeah. Matt?
The thing about the Davante Adams experience, they gave up a 3rd-round pick, and I remember when it happened, the only question I could wrap my brain around was they had just come off the Buffalo loss on Monday Night Football, and then this news drops Tuesday. They had already fired Saleh. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, you're trading for Davante Adams and you're giving up a future asset. What do I make of you? Am I thinking of you as a Super Bowl push team? No, absolutely not. And they were not even close. The best case scenario trading that asset was getting to the wild card. And it did not work out in a catastrophic way. The Rodgers experience, that's done. So the Jets can finally move into a forward future looking process. And my team for Davante Adams, I'm banging the table for the Rams. Let's go do this one more time. McVay and Stafford and Stafford comes back. That's also a part of the news. But I think they should really go for it. They have the cheapest defense in the NFL, and they have a ton of good players. They have $50 million in cap space. go get a true alpha 1 next to Nakua? Come on.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think it'd be interesting. I mean, I know that they're still trying to get rid of, um, you know, Cooper Cup. However, I mean, the one West Coast team that you didn't bring up there, I mean, the Chargers, they need a wide receiver over there, and I think that he would line up pretty well alongside Ladd McConkey. That's going to be a lot of fun in the scenario that ends up happening. Next up, Christian Kirk was released, and I know this is a name that we talked about briefly in our group chat today. So, I guess my question to you guys is, I mean, again, where do you guys think that this is going to be a fit? Because, I mean, I don't think there's a name on here, with the exception of one that retired, that won't find a team. At some point, all of these releases should find a team, whether they're depth or a starter. I'm basically going to be asking the same question for all these guys. So, Christian Kirk, I mean, I'd take him on my Bears as a third guy, but what do you guys think?
Christian Kirk is a hard one, I think, as of right now to predict. And it was the same thing when it came to, like, when he hit free agency after his run with the Cardinals. I think if they can free up a little bit of money, I think look for a team maybe like the Giants. They could just use a reliable player. He doesn't do anything at a super flashy high level, but he's you know what you're getting from him, and you're not going to have to pay like a whole lot of money for him. Obviously, he's not going to be making the minimum, but I think he's one of those good medium options within the free agency right now. So again, a team like the Giants really stands out to me.
Okay. That's not a bad option. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, he's a hyper-specific skill set. Like, he's going to primarily be used in the slot. I think it's up to him. Does he want to go contend? Then go to Buffalo, go to Kansas City. Do you want to make the most money? I think the Patriots and Raiders could be in play. I think a lot of teams need bolstering to their receiver rooms, and the Jaguars just got overfluctuated. Like, Parker Washington stepped up in a real way when Kirk was out. So they kind of just got oversaturated in the receiver room. That's why this happened. But, yeah, I think he could just be a floor raiser for some of these teams without any, major names. Like, I keep going back to the Patriots. Any receiver the Patriots should be in on, personally. Just because we need to take away some of those Pop Douglas targets and give them to real NFL players. But
hey, apparently they're having conversations with Philly about AJ Brown, but I would assume Howie hung up the phone.
Dumb. That's so dumb. For two reasons. Obviously, Philly would. Why would they trade a top 5 wide receiver? But also, if they trade him, like Philly, they're taking on $36 million in dead cap because of the way Howie structures his deals for the void years.
Would you do it for 4?
No.
Okay.
I would not. Absolutely not. Especially with the $36 million in dead cap. Get out of here.
Abdul Carter. Come on.
If they offer me a Ricky Williams package, maybe I'd think about it if they offer me the Ricky Williams package, but that's about it.
Next up, speaking of the Eagles, Darius Slay and James Bradberry released. Ben, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Bradberry was both of them were most the fans saw that one coming with kind of the resurgence of the young guys within this corner room. Slay's it's gonna be sad because he's just such a good person, big leader within the locker room. In terms of him, again, I think the teams to watch out for is don't completely rule out the Eagles bringing him back. This is exactly what had happened 2 years ago. They had cut him and then he had came back. And then that kind of pivots to him saying that he wouldn't mind ending his career with either the Eagles or the Lions. But then 2 years ago, the two teams that tried to make a push at him as well were the Ravens, which I don't know if that's quite an option now with them taking Nate Wiggins in the first round and whatnot. And then the Steelers. He has talked heavily about how much he loves Mike Tomlin. So it wouldn't shock me. And then the James Bradberry one, again, that he didn't play at all this year. He looked bad when he played at corner, but he was just another one of those guys that had kind of stepped up in a big way to help out those young guys. I think he'll find his way on a roster just because of him being a good veteran presence. But that one's a lot harder to predict just because, who's going to need just a veteran guy like that? It could really be anywhere.
Yeah. Matt, your takes on either of those
You know
guys?
who's excited about this news? Keely Ringo starting outside corner now. So I'm excited for that. But overall,
good time to
is
mention
what it is.
Keely Ringo's only 22, by the way. We forget about
Yeah.
that. So.
I mean, that secondary is dirt cheap and super young and talented, man. Like, they're impressive.
Remember when that was a weakness for Philly? I do.
365 days ago.
Yeah.
Yep. Sam Hubbard was released and retired. So, congrats to a good career from Hubbard. Lastly, Jamal Williams, not Jamal Adams.
Oh, you put
He's
this in
Adams.
there.
Jamal Williams, baby. Come on.
Oh,
I
didn't
have
want be
to.
reminded of this.
The Bears.
Oh, come
Bears.
on.
He put
I
up
know
17
why.
touchdowns in Ben Johnson's offensive
Don't get sucked
scheme.
into the 17 touchdowns. Don't do it.
The
Don't.
Bears.
You already have Jamal Williams, and his name is Roshan Johnson. All right.
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
purposely
Thank you,
left this off my news because I didn't want to talk about it.
Well, here you go.
I'm sorry.
Talk about it.
I'm sorry.
Talk
We're talking about it anyway.
Talk about it.
Talk about it, Matt. Come on. I put it on
Talk
this
about
just
it?
for you. Yeah, David Knibb coming in.
Yep.
Starting
In 2
running back of the
seasons.
Dallas Cowboys, Jamal Williams.
In 2 seasons with the New Orleans Saints, he had less than 500 rushing yards. Two touchdowns.
Yeah.
I want to forget about that guy.
But he's such a fun guy. But he's
But he
such
likes
a fun
Pokemon.
guy.
Yeah, because he runs around and talks about anime all the time. Everybody
And
loves
his
him.
cats. Yeah.
Come
Until
on.
it's like
Yeah.
run through the tackles and get more than 2 yards, please. No, I will not.
All right. So now we move on to the franchise tags, where Trey Smith was tagged, and T. Higgins was tagged. Now, there's a lot of news that broke about the Trey Smith thing. I don't know. I don't think I even told you guys about this, but so the Bears were heavily involved in trade talks with the Chiefs about Trey Smith. Okay. Now the talk surrounding that was they wanted a conditional second and a fifth to be sent to Kansas City for Trey Smith. However, the Chiefs wouldn't necessarily budge. So that's when they pivoted and traded Joe Thuney to the Bears for a 2026 fourth. Ryan Poles did not think that Thuney was, available whatsoever. This dude has only missed like 2 games in 9 seasons. So, and he's blocked for Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Like, you don't think a guy like that on an expiring contract is going to be available. And so when you get the opportunity to do that, that's why he did that. So what does this mean for the Chiefs? This means that the Chiefs most likely are freeing up more cap space to be able to sign a guy like Trey Smith for the long term. And they're also going with what they've got right now and also relying on the drafts that are very trench heavy, by the way, to be able to draft the next guy to replace him. So when it comes to Trey Smith, that's the story right now. And I just, we'll touch back on the trade here in a little bit. So guys, your take on anything Trey Smith?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just go ahead and we'll jump into the Thuney thing just right here, just because it's worth talking about it because they're just on the same team, same position as guard and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they wanted to move forward with the younger guy at that point, and Trey Smith was, has shown flashes of being very, very good, one of the best guards in the league. So it makes sense that they tagged him and are going to look forward or look towards signing him to a long-term extension. As you said, with that change or with that trade for Joe Thuney, it's really them just saying we found our 2 guards. It's going to be Trey Smith and Kingsley Suamatayo, and we're going to hope that we can find whoever that tackle is at 31 or trade up to find him. So it's really going to be a risky move because they basically have kind of put it on a silver platter what their draft plan is, at least in the first round. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what that goes. But I think at the end of the day, again, hit your wagon to the younger guy who is playing very good as well. So it makes sense that they stuck with Trey Smith instead.
Yeah. Matt, anything for Trey Smith?
Speaking to Ben's point about tackle at 31, what if this team pursues like a Ronnie Stanley, a mercenary type, like they did Donovan Smith a few years ago? Just shore it up, keep going, keep the Super Bowl window alive, because you have 15, the window's always open. So instead of dropping a rookie in there, that'd be fascinating. But no, Trey Smith, it was going to be the best free agent available if he hit open market. And this is another issue I have with the franchise tag. It prohibits true free agency in a sense. Like T. Higgins is getting the second straight year he's getting this tag. So it's like it's stopping these guys from getting a true payday in their prime. It happened for so long in Washington with Cousins that it's just I think Smith is going to get his money just as T is going to, but saying to these guys like, yeah, you're playing on a guaranteed contract for 1 year, what happens when that finally goes south for someone and it's like, oh, now he's out.
Breaking news. Chargers just released Joey Bosa, by the way. Sorry.
Whoa!
Saved a lot of money. I know saved a lot of money.
Boatload of money. But yeah, so
I know that
just happened as we're speaking. So
yeah. I don't know the numbers, but
yeah, cool. All right. Breaking news. That's awesome. While we're going over news. T. Higgins, next franchise tag. Cincy does not want to let this man go. However, they also really don't want to pay him. This is one of the most frustrating situations. This is the frustrating situation of the offseason, probably. I would argue. Like, this is the one point that we've been talking about for months and months and months and months, and it's not going to get a resolution. And he's not going to get, signed to an extension. I'm still hell bent. Yeah, I just don't think he's going to be a Bengal. He's going to get signed and traded.
This is fascinating, though. I want to know if this changes your opinion. This is fascinating, recent news, last few months. T. Higgins released his agency. He now has the same sports agent as Jamar Chase. They are linked together as a package deal for Cincinnati and Cincinnati only. So there are ways for this guy to be in a room with Cincinnati and talk about both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in a way that both of them gets paid long term, both of them stay with their guy Joe Burrow. I don't know if that changes your, opinion on the whole situation, but it's changed mine. I'll be honest, because I think I was in the same place you were. But hearing that news and hearing that they do view themselves as a package deal, and they did tag him. They tagged him early too, so just do with that what you may.
I just know how Cincy likes to operate. They like to really
they don't like to hand out
and take
cash.
the time.
They don't.
Yeah.
No, their owner's stingy.
Yeah.
They're one of their inherited owners. They're one of the, of Paul Brown, so they're not running on money like the Waltons in Denver. So it's harder to give out cash for them. So but what I've heard listening to my own sources and things like that, everyone wants to get it done, from staff to front office to even the players, T. Higgins and Jamar themselves. The only thing is paying out the money by the owners. This is the only thing.
We'll see what happens. I'm excited. Yeah. I think that T. Higgins could be so much more on a different team, though. That's the thing. I see him. I don't know. I don't like that he's in a supporting role. And I wonder what T. Higgins would think, right? I wonder if he thinks the same thing. If he thinks his production would go up if he wasn't playing alongside a superstar like Jamar Chase. And I get it. Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. I feel like there's a lot of volume that goes to that, though. If, T. Higgins were to go to New England, I expect him to take over that team. That is his team. And he would perform a heck of a lot better, than he would on Cincinnati, is my point. And so, that's where I'm coming from. And I wonder if that factors into it, or if he would really honestly be willing to take a pay cut to make sure that he, stays a Bengal with Jamar Chase. However, I mean, why hasn't this been done then at that point? If that was a package deal, to your point, my question as a follow-up would just be why hasn't this already been done then? Because if he's willing to take that pay cut and he's willing to take a little bit less money than he would make elsewhere, just to stay linked up with these other two guys, what's taking so long?
Well, because A, he had just signed with the new agent. B, it's probably because they have to be working both contracts. So it's not just the T contract that they're going to be working on. It's also the Jamar Chase contract that they have to be working on as well. In terms of money, really quickly, that Joey Bosa cut saves them just over $25 million. So now the Chargers have like 70 or like almost $90 million in free agency this year because they had 65 before, which is ridiculous. But in terms of T. Higgins, man, like he benefits from being in this offense. He benefits from not having to be the number one guy, where all the pressure is now towards Jamar Chase's side, which allows him to feast as the number two guy. And for someone who has A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, two guys that are very, very good wide receivers, there's a clear difference in Devontae Smith's role when AJ is there and when AJ is not there. And he is not the same player when playing with and without AJ. It's tough. Again, I think he probably wants to stay, but it's just a matter of if they're going to pay him because they've been reluctant to do that thus far. Hence why he's on his second tag.
Speaking of absolute beasts that, will play better elsewhere, DK Metcalf, possibly, right? He just requested a trade in Seattle. There were trade discussions during Combine, right? And it was Green Bay reaching out to see if he's available. And to that point, I would assume that they got a resounding no. However, we'll check back with you kind of thing. And DK, after hearing a little bit about it and the contract situation that he has as well, I would assume that kind of plays into it. And I think that this is why they're willing to step forward with the trade. I think they kind of slept on him a little bit, and now they're comfortable with it. However, this does not mean that Green Bay is going to walk away and just, congratulations, you got gifted DK Metcalf. Seattle's going to do their due diligence. They're going to see exactly who's got the best offer because there's a lot of teams that need a good wide receiver. And I know that there's one team in New England that's pounding the door for a good wide receiver one and willing to break the bank for him. So, we'll see exactly what happens with DK Metcalf. The dude's going to be a beast wherever he goes. I think, he doesn't have the flashiest quarterback, I would say, in the world in Geno Smith right now. And I would assume that that's why he kind of, slips under the radar compared to like the top guys in terms of wide receivers. When you think about receivers all the time, I don't feel like DK is one of the first guys you think of unless you're in Seattle, right? So, because of that, he might not seem as big of a deal to some people, but this guy will be good for a very long time, no matter who he's with, especially if he's with one of these young quarterbacks as well. And if it just so happens to be the kid in New England, I'm excited for him. That's all I got to say. Ben?
Yeah, no, I it's going to be the same answer that I've said for all of them. Again, look for Packers, look for New England. Again, there's that Raiders connection with Pete Carroll. If they do decide to trade him, I think you're probably getting a second or third at least for him. So it'll be interesting to see wherever he lands if he gets moved. But really the big thing is I feel for JSN. With DK requesting that trade and Tyler Lockett getting released, he's like looking around like that Will Smith meme where he walks into the living. Yeah. He's like that Will Smith scene where he's like walks into the room and like everything is gone. And like poor JSN, it's just him and absolutely no one else. But yeah, it'll be interesting where he ends up.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, he prefers a contender was wording I read today. He has a $31.8 million cap hit in 25. So if you're trading for that, expect an extension to be tagged along with it. So you're trading for a few seasons of DK Metcalf at a pretty rich number because he signed for a rich number a few years ago. So it's going to be fascinating the compensation that goes for him, because I think me and you, Ryan, were talking, like, we read about the Packers and their first round pick was in play. So I'm fascinated to see what the compensation is, because that's going to tell me how the league sees these receivers coming up in the draft specifically. So we got to get out of this spot at 26 because A, we don't think we're going to find a difference maker, and B, we truly, truly need one. So it's going to be fascinating. I will say, on one of these young teams with cap space, I don't want to see DK Metcalf. I want to see that guy competing for championships, I'll be honest.
Yeah. I'm interested to know, here's my tinfoil hat popping on, right? So I'm just going to extend off of this new comment we just got from Aiden. So he said he heard a lot from his Packer sources that Romeo Doubs is possibly in the package. Now, here's where I'm coming from, right? And I wonder if Seattle almost reached a deal with Green Bay, right, that they were satisfied with, as far as, okay, because the talk of the town was their first-round pick and one of their receivers, right? And I know Green Bay's got some young ones, too, that still have a couple years left on that contract that they might be able to make, a little bit out of alongside JSN, who put up great numbers and will probably be their wide receiver one next year. So looking at DK Metcalf in Seattle, I wonder from Seattle's perspective if they were like, okay, well, Green Bay, let us get back in touch with you after the combine. Let's kind of, stretch some things out around the roster and everything. I'll meet back up with you around free agency starts, right? But in reality, they found a deal that they like. They talked to DK about how, hey, we don't think that we see a realistic scenario in which we could pay you the way that you want to be paid. However, we want to work with you on a trade. And this is where the big, we're letting him look for a trade thing happen, right? Or DK requests a trade thing, right? This opens up the door for Seattle to bring him up in more conversations to teams that might not have known that he was available in the first place, and allows them to get that value from other people. So this, to what I'm wondering is, if Seattle's picking up the phone for these teams that are calling and saying, hey, this is what I get from Green Bay, what can you do better, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And if it doesn't happen, we'll see. Kyle coming in. We have some breaking news, boys. What are we missing? Please hit us with it. Could you imagine? Oh, what is that? Oh no. Oh yeah, Joey Bosa. Yes. We have talked about that. I apologize. Yeah, we talked about it briefly.
It scared me. I thought I had missed that. I was like, I have my phone right here.
For whatever reason, for those of you listening that might not be as familiar with Kyle Gagliardi, he's been on the show a couple times. He's a huge wrestling fan, and he's also a huge Green Bay Packers fan. So I thought that it was pretty ironic that we're talking about your Packers making a deal, and you're like, breaking news, by the way. You could just, cut that off now. I was recording for OTM. Hey, by the way, OTM on the Mark Wrestling Podcast. Go and listen to them. Great group of guys. Great community that they're growing over there with the Main Event Network. And your boy was on the show one time. Not to be, pat myself on the back or anything. It's kind of a big deal, whatever. He said DK to Green Bay is happening. Spoiler alert. Yeah, we'll see. I'd rather see Davante Adams personally. But anyways, so there's our trade requests. Appreciate it, Kyle. Now let's go ahead and attack the trades that actually went through. Now, we already talked about Joe Thuney, whatever. I'll learn it. We'll figure it out. But we already attacked it just a little bit. We'll go ahead and attack the other Bears trade just to get it out of the way. Now, this one got Matt pretty fired up, so I do kind of want to release a little bit of my tidbits on it before I kind of let Matt get at it, because he was fired up about this one, and I'll let him define that for you. To me, Jonah Jackson, from what I've heard from a lot of people, is that the marriage just didn't work out in LA, right? He broke his collarbone, I believe, trying to tackle someone, and so that wasn't really, good. And so, but he played at the center position in LA. Didn't play that bad, honestly. It was better than Coleman Shelton did in Chicago. Thus, it's a very, very low bar. So, there's that. But, he played fine at best at center. However, he played great in Detroit under, guess who? Ben Johnson. He was a all-star, all-star fill-in, all-pro, whatever, not all-pro. Well, you get the point, Pro Bowl fill-in. Thank you. Holy cow! Just thought about it to myself. I'm thanking myself, losing my mind. Anyways, I said he played for Ben Johnson in Detroit and was mid at best. There's a lot of talk about his cap hit. He only had like a $9 million cap hit, come to find out. So it's not as much as we originally thought. Still, quite a lot to be paying somebody that could potentially be your backup. Who knows? Overall, let's see. I'm trying to scroll through our group chat here to kind of release what I thought in live time. I said I would imagine this hole at left guard is now filled temporarily. I said this trade basically just got a decent system guy for close to no draft capital at the expense of some cap space, which we have a lot of right now. They can restructure, a couple guys on the team to make at least, I want to say it was $30 million as well. So they can create more if need be. I said injury history is a concern, but if you keep him at left guard, you can kind of let him play ball at that point where he's comfortable. I said, and then I kind of expanded on not liking the fact that I could be paying it back up almost $10 million. The film of him in Detroit had me pretty cautiously optimistic. But nonetheless, that's really it. And then we kind of let it be after that. And then I woke up to the trade for, the big guy that we got today. So I'm going to open up the floor. Matt, I want to hear from you specifically because I know him and I kind of I don't want to say bashed heads on it, but disagreed on it a little bit. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, the Bears trade a 6th rounder this year. Nothing. They take on about a $12 million cap at 11.8. I have in my notes. No guaranteed money left next season, so you can cut him next year and save money. The only thing that I have an issue with, and the alarm bells go off, and maybe this isn't the way that you should think about it, but 365 days ago, the Rams were willing to give him that contract. And now, a year later, a smart football team, a smart organization, the Rams, are done with it. They said, F it. We want a day 3 pick right now. Please, let's clean our hands of this. And so that's what makes me interested about this. Like, he played 200 snaps this season, and you mentioned center, played 107 snaps there. So, and one of those was the Week 18 game, and he played 1 snap in the playoffs. He was not one of their best 5. It's fascinating because you didn't give up anything. There's an out after after this season, but at the same time, it's like before the news today with Joe Thuney being a Bear, I was cautiously optimistic about this move specifically, and frankly didn't like it. With the Thuney thing, it gives you more versatility, it gives you more flexibility, and it shores up 4 out of 5 spots. There still lacks, I don't want to say vision, but right now, Braxton Jones is coming up on an extension. Joe Thuney, they trade for, has 1 year left on his deal. Jonah Jackson could be out after next year. So it's interesting because you had a guy like Tevin Jenkins right there who I think was better than Jonah Jackson in your building. But again, you want to get Ben Johnson's guy. If Ben Johnson is sticking his neck out for this guy, then you make the move because it costed you nothing. So that's my overall thoughts on it.
Just a lot to pay somebody, but meh move all around. It's a fine reaction.
That's I'm kind of in the same boat as Matt. I don't think you're actually getting like a good football player here. To be frank, if I'm just being honest, I don't know how good he's actually going to be for you. And then you're taking on 9 million, 11 million, wherever you find it, in cap for a guy that's a replacement level at that. And that's kind of where my issue lies. And in the conversation in which we were like, Poles needs to do better shoring up the offensive line, and he can't continue to just get these replacement level starters, his first move was to go out and take on $9 million or whatever the cap hit is for another replacement level starter. And again, a lot can be fixed with now knowing that, you guys traded for Joe Thuney and all of that stuff. But yeah, at the time I was not the biggest fan of it. So it'll be interesting to see if he is that plan at the guard or if they go somewhere else. So,
yeah. And then the last trade that has gone through so far, 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel was traded to the Commanders for a 2025 fifth. A lot less than what I would have thought. However, I also get it because it's Deebo Samuel and he's like kind of not as good as he used to be. So overall, it's a versatile guy. I'm pretty excited to see what they can do with him in Washington. Cliff Kingsbury, have fun, man. That's going to be a fun offense. I mean, Jaden Daniels, Deebo Samuel. Dude, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Terry McLaurin on that team too. Like, yeah. I mean, they're building something good in Washington, and I'm looking forward to it. And Deebo, it looked like towards the end of his tenure in San Francisco, the man just needed a little bit of a change of scenery. It was just one thing after another for him, and then that final year, he just wasn't getting utilized all that well. Overall, fine move for the Commanders. I mean, you don't really give up all that much. You gave up a lottery ticket for the guy. You know what I mean? So at that point, heck of a job then. And for the 49ers, the rumor has it that they're also opening up the door to trading Brandon Ayuk. And that's going to be a little interesting because to me, I'm thinking, are the Niners kind of, not fully blowing it up, but I mean, are we tossing frags right now? You know what I mean? Like, just little explosions here and there to the roster. I mean, you have Brock Purdy's extension coming up, right? I mean, that's something that we were talking about briefly. I want to say, about a year from now or a year ago, because they were just in the Super Bowl and we weren't really sure if that's the guy that you want to extend. So, I mean, I'm sure money has something to do with it, just a little bit as well. But, overall thoughts on the Niners, guys. What do you got?
Yeah, I think the money aspect in him just like actively not wanting to be there, which he had made it very clear he did not want to be there, were the two driving factors in that. They do want to create some cap space so they can figure out whatever the heck they're going to do with Brock Purdy, which seems like they're inevitably going to pay him a boatload of money, which will be a conversation for another day. I guess at the end of the day, you're trading a fifth round pick for a guy that has the potential to be really good. I think Jaden Daniels is someone who can probably get the most out of him. But for me, he was just not productive. He's not the Deebo Samuel we were used to, and maybe it was just an off year for him. But you traded for a guy that has not been productive, and you're taking on like $20 million in cap. I think if you would have just let him hit free agency, you probably could have gotten him for cheaper. Because I would be really shocked if they didn't cut him if they weren't able to find a trade partner. So it's tough, but at the end of the day, you hope that you can get the most out of him with Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. But I think $20 million is a lot for the player that Deebo Samuel is as of March 2025.
Yeah. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's the 148th pick for a wide receiver, too, who's going to be an instant impact in your offense. Like, the only thing with Deebo was, how hyper-specific his role is as a receiver. I love the Commanders for it because they're, A, in need of a wide receiver, too, and B, they love running the tempo stuff, getting into quick sets, and just spraying the ball 5 yards, make a move, get upfield, things like that. The Niners eat $31 million in dead cap doing this, and the Commanders take on a $17.6 million cap hit this season. And again, they had $80 million before this. If you didn't think in free agency you could get a guy of Deebo's caliber, Yeah, it is what it is.
It's not a bad move in my opinion. I mean, it's not an overwhelming, oh my gosh, crazy needle mover yet, but can be. It can be. And then now we move on to extensions. So this one, Ben, Saquon Barkley, 2 years, $41 million. Pretty cool for the guy that just did a pretty cool thing in Philly, huh? What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Howie Roseman has made, I'll lump in Zach Bond into this just to get the Eagles out of the way. Yeah, they just made him the most expensive running back in the history of the NFL, which is very, very, very well deserved after the season he had just put up, again, breaking over 2,000 yards. And then I think it was close to 400 receiving yards, something like that. So very well deserved there. And then same for Zach Bond. It was hard to let a guy like that with 151 tackles, 69 stops. Nice. Led the NFL in the stop category. He had 5 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions as well. Best linebacker I've ever seen play, as an Eagles fan in my lifetime. And he learned his lesson from letting TJ Edwards go. I'm sure you're happy about that one. But if you would have told me 2 years ago that the Eagles were going to give out the most expensive running back contract in the history of the NFL and the 4th highest paid linebacker contract in the NFL, I would have told you you're absolutely lying. But Howie Roseman has shown the want and desire to keep these elite guys in the building for as long as he can. And if that's not a really good pitch heading into Monday, I do not know what is. But again, really excited. Those were going to be, Zach Bond specifically was going to be the priority of the free agency here. And again, Saquon injury is a little concerning, but he was able to stay healthy behind this offensive line. And if he can continue to do what he's done, it's well worth the money that you were going to pay for him. So, and it freed up some cap signing him to extension, Saquon Barkley. So absolutely loved it.
Like that happen.
Right. Could not just ecstatic, and everything else that's going to happen from here is just going to be icing, on the cake. I'm so happy. We're basically running back the same exact team from this past Super Bowl outside of a few pieces on the defensive line. Again, could not be happier. This is an amazing, amazing time. So,
Matt, anything on the Saquon extension?
I mean, again, it's just more Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie just rewarding the guys with early, quick extensions, and you create the void years, and you can never keep the cap hit high. I can guarantee Saquon Barkley will never, for his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, play with the cap hit over $20 million. It will not happen. And that is, again, just what they do, and they do it at such a good rate, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you pay James Bradbury after 1 year of production, and it doesn't go, well, and then you have to refill the position anyway. That's my only hesitancy with the Bond thing.
Yeah.
1 year of off-ball linebacker, and now, this is exactly where I expected. I expected 3 for 50. He got 3 for 51, but he's only behind, Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, and then one other. Is it Edmonds? It might be Edmonds.
Yeah.
Those are the only linebackers making more money than Bond off of 1 season of production. It's interesting. It's fascinating to see how it ages. I don't know if it's Fangio in the room saying, we got to keep this guy around.
It's Fangio.
They make it work, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's just an interesting overcorrection from Howie. Like you said, if they were setting the market at running back and paying an off-ball linebacker 4th highest, you'd say you're crazy. What if I told you they were both All-Pros this year? You would have said, pay them. And so that's what happens. So
yeah. To your point, it was absolutely Fangio. I mean, from the moment Zach Bond had walked in the door, Fangio had that plan. We had mentioned it. He was when am I going to rush the passer? Well, you're not. You're going to be an all-pro linebacker is what you're going to do. And yeah, that's a scary thing. I mean, if he plays at the level he did this year across the next 3 years, the contract is absolutely worth it. Now, if he doesn't, that's when you start getting a little bit concerned. But on the flip side of that too, you say like, oh, it's 1 year of production, you're a little hesitant. But also, this was his first year playing that position, and he put up these stats. So what if he builds on top of that, which is also a very real possibility. So it's, the two sides of it. But yeah, it's great. Happy to be here.
The next one is Osa Odigizua, 4 years, $80 million for the Cowboys. The dude played pretty well. I mean, I think it's a well-deserved contract. Ben, this is one of your guys, right? You were a huge fan of this guy, if I remember correctly, back in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Osa. I think a little bit more than like consensus, but I wasn't like super high on him.
I'm just trying to remember. Was that just one of the names that we were just like, this is a fun last name to say, so I kind of like this guy, or was that just genuinely a prospect crush that you had?
No, I mean, I did like him. But I again, very well deserved. There were conversations before the deal had come out that the Cowboys were considering tagging him so they could get this long-term deal figured out. The big thing here is this is at the bare minimum what the Melton Williams contract is going to look like. And I honestly probably expect more for Melton Williams, probably $1 million more per year or something like that. So that kind of set the market for what Melton's going to be looking for, but a well-deserved extension.
Yeah. Matt, anything?
Yeah, the Cowboys had one active interior lineman going into next season, and it's Mozzie Smith. So this had to happen. They needed to make this happen, and it happened at a great price. 4 for $80, $20 million annually. That's behind guys in their 30s like Leonard Williams and approaching the 30s Deron Payne. So I love it. It doesn't set a market. It's kind of in the healthy medium where he should be. And you don't have to use the tag, which would have been $20-something million guaranteed. So that's another plus. Pay the guys who are good for you, Jerry. Stop waiting till the last minute.
Micah Parsons.
Matthew Stafford signed a 4-year, $160 million extension with the Rams after, finally getting it done. They were thinking about moving him, and then they eventually just budged. I can't be the only one that thinks like there's no way he plays out all 4 years of this extension, right? Like
I would be shocked. I to the trade point, I don't think he was ever going to be traded. I really think it was go out, see what your market looks like, and we're going to try to match that. The interesting point to this though is Rich Eisen reported that the Giants and the Rams agreed on compensation for him, so what they're going to get in return, and then also what Stafford was going to look like in his contract. But at the end of the day, Stafford decided to take a little bit less money to stay and compete, which I'm not shocked that Matt Stafford did something like that. But yeah, I don't think he was never going to get traded. It was copium from a lot of fans. It just didn't make any sense for them to trade him.
Yeah. Matt, you got anything on this one?
Yeah, I just want to correct you a little bit. The 4-year 160, that's from 22. So
I apologize.
There's no in-place structure yet. Like, I've been waiting to see what the structure looks like, to be honest. But yeah, like the only thing I was going to add is exactly what Ben added. Like, the Giants were all in on this. The Giants had the trade compensation figured out, and they went above and beyond, and Stafford likely knew enough about the contract to desire it. But again, it's uprooting your family at nearly 40 years old, being a West Coast kid and going from the West Coast to the East Coast for a team that might win 6 games for a little bit more money. How much more money? We'll never know, but it is fascinating to see how the Giants are truly, truly all in on this. And it makes me think, what's your pivot? Is it Rodgers? Is it going to get the number 1 pick? It's just fascinating from the Giants being so aggressive and above and beyond for it.
Yeah. Max Crosby signed an extension today. 3 years, $106 million. So we can go ahead and put the trade, things to rest. I'm just saying trade things because I feel like it's purely speculated by Twitter. So, we can put that to rest. But Yeah, good for Max Crosby. I mean, this is the team that he wants to be a part of and rebuild and be that cornerstone for. I just hope that they get it done for the guy. I mean, the dude's a beast year in and year out. I mean, he's got to help him in one way, shape, or form. Can they please do something around him and get him a quarterback or something on the opposite side to watch when he's on the sidelines? Good Lord.
Yeah. And the big thing there for him is congratulations. It's 35 million or more. I think that's either the highest non-paid or close to highest non-paid quarterback. Yeah. But you had mentioned putting the trade stuff to rest, but that doesn't just go for him. That goes for a lot of franchises that wanted their team in on Myles Garrett, because now that set the market, and now that's going to be the bar that Myles Garrett's going to look at that, and he's going to say, I want more money than that. And a lot of teams are going to say,
I'm so happy you're thinking like this, Ben. That's exactly what I thought too. Thank you, man.
Yes. And that's going to take a lot of teams out of the Myles Garrett sweepstake as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that signing impacts the trade conversation surrounding Myles Garrett.
Yeah. Matt, anything in addition to that?
Pay your good players. And the Raiders don't have many good players.
Micah Parsons, Jerry.
That's what you got to do.
Stop it.
This is what you got to do.
Jerry.
Fair.
Max Crosby not that good.
No, Jerry, please. This is what we saw it with CeeDee Lamb when you waited to pay him. And we're already starting to see this
Jerry
mistake.
loves the attention.
We're already starting to see this mistake materialize in real time with the Micah Parsons contract. Pay him as soon as you can. You just opened up like $55 million in the restructure between Dak and CD. Use that money for Micah before you're going to have to pay him even more than what Myles Garrett gets. When you wait this long, it hurts you.
We've got a
Cowboys
fan here in the comments section. Micah ain't getting paid. That's what he said. He said it. Yes, he said
it. He wants Micah. He's very well aware. For those wondering, David is one of my very close friends. Actually going to go and visit him in like a week. But one of my very close friends, and he wants Micah, but he's of the rational Cowboy fan belief that Jerry Jones is just delusional. But that's besides the point.
Two firsts. I'll send you two firsts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And then the Eagles, I forgot to normally I bunch these guys up and organize them, so I apologize. Zach Bond, 3 years, $51 million for the extension. David said Jerry will take a fifth, baby. Let's go. He's a Bear. Anyways, yeah, Ben, I'm going to have you talk about him. But first off, I apologize for not, grouping them together with the other Eagle that, deserved an extension.
Yes. So we had talked about him when we had talked about Saquon.
We did. Okay.
We did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, your thoughts.
Here's my thoughts, man. When I think about linebackers, I think about how Jack Sanborn isn't getting paid, and that just makes me sad. So I'm happy you got the guy that you like, Ben. That's cool. You know who didn't get the guy that they liked? Me. Okay, I wanted to keep Jack Sanborn, but you got Tremaine Edmonds. That we got him. Whatever. It's fine.
You have TJ,
fine, I guess. We got TJ, and we got Noah Sewell. Don't forget about him. It's gonna be nice to see him kind of
real needle
creep up a little bit on the depth chart. But good Lord, yeah. Okay, and then the last thing that I have here is the signing of the week. Drum rolls, please. Former Bengals guard Alex Kappa to the Raiders, 2 years, $11 million. Everybody point and laugh at the Vegas Raiders.
I liked it. I thought it was good.
Alex Kappa's not good.
No, it was a fine. I would much rather be paying Alex Kappa $5 million than Jonah Jackson $9. That's besides the point.
You know who Alex Kappa blocked for? Tom Brady. He's the president of football ops for the Raiders. helping out his boy.
But yeah.
That's how we got him for $5 million.
And exactly. It's in terms of the Raiders really quickly, before we move on to the next segment. They also had informed Gardner Minshew that they're going to be releasing him. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at quarterback. Do they go Shadur or whatever? But then your report, like fairly recently, within like the last hour, had come out that like they're a sneaky name to watch out for Geno Smith. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up going within the quarterback, cutting Minshew and basically only having Jarrett Stidham's still there, but basically only having Aiden O'Connell. Oh yeah, see, only having Aiden O'Connell. So,
all right. So this is where we kind of